Radioman here. A little fireside chat. We get the old, I'm going to have to clean the ash out of this thing pretty soon. Get the old fire started here. I'm going to be on the radio a little later this evening. It's a little chilly out. Warm up the house. And, tonight on the fireside chat, we're going to talk about jerks on the radio. And sometimes I hear people, they'll say things like, well, I got on the radio and I didn't like this. And, that's their reason for getting rid of everything and whatever, or not participating in the hobby. And I often wonder to myself, those people, how do they get through life? I mean, this is not unique, this issue of miserable people that lead miserable lives, that need to get on the radio and they can't control what goes on in their lives personally, so then they go onto the radio. This could be CB radio and ham radio, and they attempt to make those people's lives miserable by spreading their misery. And we were talking about this on the radio the other day, and it's an unavoidable fact. It happens. I try not to get involved in it. I don't let it bother me. I've had people tell me, well, you shouldn't talk to this person, you shouldn't, or whatever, because they did this. And my attitude's always been is that I'll talk to whoever, and I'll talk wherever, be it CB radio, ham radio. As long as those people are okay with me, I'm okay with them. We were talking about this on the radio the other night, and I reminded one of the operators on the radio. I said, you realize that if we were in a model RC planes, you'd have some jerk off. You'd have the guys that like to fly the drones and the other guys that like to fly the antique ones. We'd be feuding. If this was hot rods, we'd be feuding. These people and these things are everywhere in life. And what I always try to tell myself about this hobby, and don't get me wrong, this is we're talking fewer than 3% type of occurrence, but when there's people like that, I try to tell myself, we're all here for the same reason. And because we enjoy the hobby. And even those people that are being jerks, think about it. They've invested money in equipment. They enjoy the hobby, but they act out for one reason or another. And sometimes I have empathy for them, because this behavior carries on in other parts of their lives. But, I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff. I figured I'd talk about this while I was getting my fire going. But for the most part, we all have a good time on there. And like I said, when I encounter people like this, I don't usually engage with them and, play their games. And sometimes, like I said, I go, this is somebody that probably has a miserable personal life, and they behave this way because this is their outlet to, maybe they have no control over problems they have at work and their marriage and their family, and they get on the radio to make other people miserable. But like I said, I don't run into this very often, but we had this conversation today. There was somebody that, well, I'm not going to be on the radio anymore because they had a bad run-in, like a one thing. And by run-in, I mean like dumb words were exchanged. And I remember thinking to myself, what do you do in the workplace? How do people resolve conflict? I thought the guy had a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to having a bad run-in, but And we were talking about this, and I reminded this guy about the RC plane analogy or the hot rod analogy. I think my fire's starting to come around here. I closed the door until it started drafting. Get a nice little, there we go. There we go. Let's get some other wood here. But, with all that said, I think, the radio hobby, like a lot of hobbies, I mean, people say, oh, radio's dying. Give me a hobby that isn't dying. I mean, I know that a lot of people are into flying drones these days, but not a lot of people do hobbies these days, and radio being one of them. And, I try to remind myself that, we're here to have fun, and that's what I try to do. When I meet people that I like, and, we all try to enjoy each other's company and, talk about radio and why we're here. Part of the reason why I do this YouTube channel. It's a small channel, it's growing, but I get a lot of encouraging words from people. And I've met some great people on the radio. The bad people that I've met, I can literally count on one hand. And so what? So, with all that said, let's not take this stuff too seriously, guys. And figured try something new here. So, Radioman's fireside chat here as we get the fire going this evening. And actually, this wood stove drafts pretty good. So once we close this, it'll actually run a hell of a lot better when I close that door. But makes for a lot nicer ambiance when I'm speaking. And some pretty dry firewood too, so that'll come around pretty quickly, as you can see. We'll be cooking with gas in no time. So anyways, this is Radio Man. We're off the key. Take care, and hope to hear you on the air.